Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Top 10 Drama Series of the 21st Century. For this Top 10, I looked mainly at TV drama series, where at least half of its run took place after January 1st, 2000. Also, a disclaimer that should go without saying, but this Top 10 is just like my opinion, man. If your favorite show is missing, there's a chance I haven't seen it, or it's possible I have but didn't think as highly of it. Also, I'll get my genre bias out of the way. From this list, you'll be able to tell I have a tendency towards sci-fi and fantasy, and there are certain genres, I should say, I shy away from, such as the mobster and the zombie genres. Sorry, fans of The Sopranos and The Walking Dead. So, I'll start with my number 10, Stargate Universe. In my opinion, the most underrated show of all time, and the worst example of a show canceled before its time. Seriously, no show's cancellation in the history of watching TV upset me as much as this show's cancellation. I thought this was the best Stargate series ever made. It was amazing they managed to create a down-to-earth, character-driven, realistic series that dug itself out of that corner while honoring the material that came before it. Honestly, this felt a lot less like a syndicated series than its predecessors, and more like a powerful drama that stood on its own 2 feet. Unfortunately, it was doomed because of the sudden change in atmosphere alienated some diehard SG-1 fans, while its Stargate association alienated the average viewer, unfamiliar with the franchise, thus dooming one of the best drama series of the 21st century to an early and undeserved demise. Number 9 is Prison Break. Prison Break is a show that had its weak points aplenty, but I felt when it delivered, it really delivered. The general consensus seems to be that the first season was its best and the last season was its worst and not worth watching. I humbly disagree, as I prefer the second season to the first season, and I thought the third season was by far its worst, not even worth watching, while its fourth season was okay and at least watchable. They managed to create a cast of interesting characters that got you involved and made you want to keep watching, and either root for them or want them to fail because of how despicable they are. And of course, I have to mention the lead character, Michael Scofield, the flawed genius who always has everything figured out until he doesn't. Who is such a dynamic and well-portrayed character who always made this show worth watching. Number 8 is 24. 24 is another show whose strengths were in its characters and the suspense and excitement it managed to put out week by week. This show seriously suffered from repeating the same plot points and plot devices over and over, so this is an example of a show that overstayed its welcome and went on for far too long. Despite that, though, its amazing ability to build drama and suspense made the show exceptional and worth watching regardless. Even in the seasons that were poorly done, there was always moments and episodes that had me biting my nails and sitting on the edge of my seat like no other show could do. And part of the reason it pulled this off so well was its ability to write full, believable, and interesting characters and villains that, although were obviously villains, were also three-dimensional and dynamic. Truly an exciting series. Number 7 is Fringe. At first glance, an X-Files ripoff, and indeed the first season did feel like a different version of the X-Files. However, what really set it apart was its dynamic and interesting characters, including the mad scientist Walter Bishop. As the show went on, it started to shred its X-Files origins and differentiate itself into a serialized series, following one story arc and relying less and less on the monster of the week formula. Which is when it became truly amazing. Like the previous 2 series, Fringe suffered from a downfall at its end of its run, with a third season finale that jumped the shark, leading to an unbelievably awful 4th season, and a 5th season that tries but fails to pull itself out of the rut it created. However, the first 3 seasons are some of the best TV you'll ever see. Number 6 is Battlestar Galactica. The dark and gritty sci-fi show managed to captivate and build suspense at almost every turn. There were obvious villains and heroes in the series, but each were very dynamic, having dark and evil sides. And another heroic side in which one could sympathize with and understand, which brought a true sense of reality and intrigue to its exciting premise. I would say the fault in this series lay more with the fact that I often felt it was trying too hard to be gritty and on the edge, like, ooh, look at how gritty I am. With the premise of a race of people led to the brink of extinction, it doesn't really require that. But despite that, the series managed to make and keep and hold my interest, wanting me to come back week after week for more, so definitely a noteworthy and worth watching series. Number 5 is Dexter, a uniquely dark and intriguing series about a serial killer who only kills bad guys. The strength of this series is in the portrayal of the double life Dexter Morgan leads as he tries to be an ordinary guy working for the police, when in fact he's a cold, calculating killer who is mostly faking the feelings that he has for other people. A lot of people point to the first season as being the best, but I only felt it was okay and thought that the show truly achieved greatness in the following seasons when you start to see the feelings he has for other people like his wife and his sister are real. You see a character development in him as he starts to realize this and learn more about who he really is as a person. Unfortunately, this is another example of a series that falters at the end, which led to one of the worst series endings ever. However, this powerhouse of a show manages to keep an intrigued and dynamic characters with exciting storylines through most of its run, making this definitely worth watching. Number 4 is House MD. At first, I refused to even watch this show because of my dislike of a hospital show genre, as I saw it all as unoriginal and boring. And indeed, throughout the first 3 seasons of the run, I wasn't that impressed, but impressed enough to keep watching. The show started to achieve greatness in its 4th season, which carried on into the later seasons when the show really made it more about the characters rather than just the mystery of the week. The overarching character story were fleshed out and enlarged. The supporting cast also served to flesh out the main character of House, who was a truly dynamic character that made the show fantastic, and ending on a high point with his finishing arc that focused entirely on the characters and a satisfying conclusion, making what I thought would be a typical hospital drama into one of the best and most original shows of the 21st century. Number 3 is Breaking Bad. Generally recognized as one of the best shows in recent history, and for good reason, Breaking Bad is a powerhouse of a great drama, outstanding acting as it follows the downfall of the show's anti-hero Walter White, as over the course of 5 seasons he transforms from an average high school teacher father into a drug kingpin. Although the series can be quite slow and boring at times, overall it's worth sticking with, as it produces some of the most dramatic and well-acted crime drama you'll find in any medium. I personally feel that the show got better with every season, as with the first 2 seasons I felt were above average but not outstanding television. I feel the show progresses and gets better year by year. By the time it gets into its final season, I have to recognize it as one of the best drama series to ever air on television. Contrary to some of the other series I mentioned that overstayed their welcome, I would say Breaking Bad is the only TV series I can think of that ended on its highest note. Instead of trying to milk more money out of its viewership, it ended when it was on top, creating an overall story arc that lasts 5 seasons that fits together perfectly and goes out with a bang. In my opinion, it has the best final season of any TV series ever made. Number 2 is Lost. An amazing TV series that combines interesting and dynamic stories with great drama, intriguing mysteries that never end, and mind-boggling philosophical dilemmas. And what I love most about this show is how expertly it combines this complex cerebral style with melodrama to produce the most emotional, powerful, and striking scenes of any TV series, as it really knows how to pull on the heartstrings. In the second season of its run, it was highly regarded as one of the most thought-provoking shows of all time, had legions of fans conjuring theories to try to explain the bizarre events occurring in the series. Unfortunately, its ending was not completely satisfying, as too many storylines were left unresolved and abandoned, or were half-heartedly, unsatisfyingly resolved. I felt that the last couple of seasons did not live up to the greatness it had set for the first half of the series run, which is why I had to place this at number 2 instead of number 1. As for the longest time, I considered this my favorite TV series of all time, despite the fact I was not completely satisfied with the ending, because I still strongly feel this show is truly unique in the way it combined complex fantasy-based mysteries with realistic and hard-hitting character dramas. One of the great things about this series is the way it plays with time and revealing certain events to the audience out of order in order to eschew and to control their perception of the events taking place. For example, the flashback model, in which we learn more about the characters' backstories and motivation as the series progresses, as well as we sometimes get other characters' perspectives on events that have already occurred, which shed a different light on the events that we thought we understood. All this combined with the best musical score ever recorded for a TV series makes this the second greatest show of the 21st century. And my number 1 favorite TV series drama of the 21st century should come as no surprise to those who are familiar with my YouTube channel, and that is Game of Thrones. Some of the advantages I feel Game of Thrones has over a show like Lost is that it's based off a series of novels, meaning that most of its main storyline and structure has already been written, and the series doesn't have to struggle to find its footing or direction as much. And shows like Lost pioneered the modern day serialized drama and were testing it out while networks were still getting used to it. As now it is extremely common for shows to have this one story arc over an entire series run structure, where each episode and season is just another chapter in the story, which has ultimately already been mapped out and thought out. One might notice that I gravitate more towards a series with a large ensemble of interesting characters, and no show has more characters than Game of Thrones. It in fact creates an entire world with many cultures in which we learn more about and see how the characters function. I definitely feel that Game of Thrones begins in the first season with a narrow focus on characters and events that begin to spread out and grow wider and wider, making the later seasons more interesting to me than the earlier ones. However, this show is only about halfway through its run, so it's possible that the ending could turn out to be unsatisfying and it would drop it in my rank. However, I have high hopes that that won't happen. And no discussion of Game of Thrones would be complete without mentioning its unpredictable and subversion of the hero and villain model of telling stories, as no character is immune to being killed off, as what was portrayed and the show's main protagonist was killed off in the very first season, and many more shocking, surprising deaths to follow. As in the typical series, typically you have your heroes and your villains, and you know your heroes will survive to see every day, such as like Jack Bauer in 24. However, this show subverts that, and so you never know where it's going to go. The show also has many emotional and powerful dramatic moments while presenting an abundance of dynamic characters, and always manages to subvert expectations. making this, in my opinion, the best TV drama series to air so far in the 21st century. Well, that's it for my top 10 drama series of the 21st century. If you agree with my choice for number 1, you should check out my channel, as I have many other videos that explore and review Game of Thrones, and I plan to do many more videos that cover a lot of other of the TV series I mentioned in this list. So keep an eye out for that, and thanks a lot for watching.